Hello, everybody. It's been a while, but I'm back. It's the silly one. Yes. Sorry for not streaming for a little while. I've been a bit busy. Work's been busy, and also from a time perspective, my flexible time has generally been used up playing the Cards Mobile beta event, which I've been invited to, and generally stress testing that and feeding back on that and coming up with the broken combos and telling them what's wrong, what's right, and what works and what doesn't. And that's been thoroughly enjoyable. It's been a nice break. I do like cards. For those of you that are not aware of it, it's cards with a K, and it's a World War II themed card game. It's free on Steam. If you go to 1939 games, then it's free to download and play without having a Steam Deck or anything else like that. And I might even get round and stream a few bits and bobs on it. I'd like to do that. I think that'd be quite fun. I find it quite an interesting game and well backed and well supported. And I was even fortunate enough last year to go to Iceland. And when I was in Iceland, I went and met up with 1939 Games. They're only a small little company over there. Really nice people, and it was really good to go and meet them and that. But anyway, so I'm back again, and I'm doing BattleTech again today. And I'm going to do two things just to make it up to you guys. Because instead of doing one, I'm going to do two for the price of one, freebie for it. Because I've left you alone for a few days or whatever else. And the two things I'm going to do are kind of joined anyway. So there's a nice little theme going on here, and one will lead into the other. The first is a review of the Suicide Troops card from the Arsenal set that Michael Cohen requested to have a look at. And second is a deck that utilises this. A bit of a throwback Thursday, but on a Sunday. I know I have a throwback Thursday idea, and I'm always busy on a Thursday, so it's throwback Thursday on a completely different day. I'm sorry. It just goes to the general silliness of things. So that's what we're going to have a little look at today. So let's first of all go and find the Suicide Troops card. I've just gone and done a little search for it, and here it is in the top left corner. And this is a card that came out in Arsenal with all of the vehicle swarms that I showed a few weeks ago when I looked at Beaker's up. Completely dump your deck, dump your hand, refill your hand, and dump it again. Swarm with all of those draw cards in there to completely just splurge everything on the table. And this one, because of all of that free deploy swarm and everything else, kind of went under the radar for a little bit. And it wasn't until that the 10 vehicle limit came out, and why 10 vehicles we still don't know. It should have been 12, to fit in with the 6 card limit. And that's also to stress at this point that this is BattleTech that we are talking about, the original one. Some people are starting to call it classic. I'm not sure about that personally. When people tell me things are classic, then I generally think they're 25 years old. Mind you, maybe the game is actually now thinking about it. And I like it for that aspect. So anyway, we're talking about the original game. So it went under the radar because everyone was playing with vehicles and free deploy stuff left, right, and centre. And then a little guy called Maximus came up with a crazy deck, and it is a crazy deck, and it is a work of art. I've got to give it that. That utilised that after the 10 vehicle limit came in, and it was a fun and load of fun to play, and quite annoying to play against, to be fair. And it utilised this card. So we'll have a look at the card first, and then look at the deck. And the card is Suicide Troops. It's a command. It's an enhancement. It's in a sphere only, and within that, it's even more restrictive because it's Liao or Kurita. So one of those two houses only. And the card says place Suicide Troops on a vehicle. So that fits in with the enhancement. The enhancement goes onto that vehicle. The vehicle enhanced by Suicide Troops attacks a site and is not blocked. Okay, put a guerrilla counter on that site. So for reference, site can be anything. That could be anything in your command post. Could be a CUC effectively, but the most notorious one is your opponent's stockpile. And this is where it starts to get quite nasty. because during your opponent's reload repair phase, now this is before things got moved by Wizards of the Coast. So if I just flick over to the game view, down in this bottom left hand corner, we will see untap, draw, repair and reload, deploy. So you do all your repairing first, then you deploy. So that's the updated version. Okay. So during your opponent's repair reload phase, for each guerrilla counter on each site, Suicide Troops deals 2 damage to that site. So if you're thinking about your normal boring assembly, if we just put this in place, let's find a support card. Here's an assembly. It's got 4 armor, 3 structure. The 2 damage bounces off the 4 armor and it dies. Nothing happens. It doesn't die. It doesn't take any damage. If you think about some of the uniques available, let me see if I can find a suitable unique. And let's look at the armor of some of these guys. Let's see if I can find someone with a nice low armor. Yeah, well, sorry, 21st Century Lancers, it's gonna be you. Yes, 21st Century Lancers. Here we go. It has 1 armor, 5 structure. So 2 damage on that, 1 bounces off the armor, and then you start to chip away at that 5 structure, and it takes 1 damage. Okay, so not that great on command cards or things with armor. However, the stockpile doesn't have an armor value, and none of the other things, such as let's look for something that would prevent that. Maybe something like Heavy Woods, which says prevent 2 damage. That says during a mission. So Suicide Troops in that respect is quite powerful, because the majority of the effects that you could play during a mission, Heavy Fog, Heavy Woods, anything to nullify damage, doesn't happen there. It's not in the missions phase. This is all during the repair reload phase, arguably before you've even drawn. So it's kind of like you're taking 2 damage anyway. So if you think about it, previous turn, guy hits me with Suicide Troops. I don't scrap 2 cards straight away, but there's nothing I can do about it. I'm going to be scrapping 2 later. Why that's the case, I'm not quite sure, because, you know, could it end the game? It doesn't really matter from my point of view. You might as well just scrap 2 cards straight away. I can't think of anything that kind of gets in the way of that. Why you couldn't just do 2 damage, but maybe there's a card out there I can't think of. Please tell me if I've missed something. I'll bring it up and mention it when I stream next. But for me, it's 2 damage. Doesn't matter when it happens. Untap. Where are we? Untap, draw. Okay, so you draw your 2 cards and then you repair reload, so it doesn't affect the next 2 cards drawn, which, I don't know, maybe you can manipulate that with something like Comstar Deep Agent, but very, very vague or very unplausible. Well, Comstar is, well, Comstar Deep Agent's Comstar, obviously, so you're going to need to play a Star League deck to do that, which seems awfully hassleful. Please forgive the tea. Again, I have a sore throat. Here's the year for it. So anyway, repair reload. For each guerrilla counter on the site, deal 2 damage. So draw 2, scrap 2. Then, after the repair reload phase, you get a chance to do something about it. You are locked in up until that point. And the card says, during his or her deploy phase, opponent may tap any number of mechs and or vehicles. Obviously that would go to unit now that they've reworded that, to remove that many guerrilla counters from any combination of sites and scrap twice that many cards from his or her stockpile. Right, what does that mean in English? So if I've hit you for 1 and there is a guerrilla counter on your stockpile from this Suicide Troop, then you take 2 damage in your repair reload phase. Then you can deploy stuff. And then during that deploy stuff, and the advantage here is that you can deploy stuff, activate it, and then tap it, which is the benefit. So I can tap something I've just built to remove the one counter that my opponent has put on my stockpile and take twice that many damage. So I'm getting 2 more damage for it. So this little Suicide Troops card does 4 damage in effect, minimum. Okay. Next turn, I put another counter on there. It does 2 more damage. Okay. And to remove both of them, I'm scrapping 4 cards. So it's one of those effects you kind of want to get rid of as early as possible, because if you let it accumulate and accumulate and accumulate, it will kill you very, very quickly. Of course, the problem here is that with Suicide Troops active, and I've just built a mech and tapped it to get rid of the counter, the card or the unit or the vehicle that's just hit me with Suicide Troops on is probably going to hit me again. And I'm in a lot of trouble because I'm going to take 2 more damage, and then I'm going to have to tap another mech or another unit to get rid of the counter. And I might even end up with something that can block. So if a unit with Suicide Troops gets off to a fast start, then you can be down 8 cards very quickly. And if you've often listened to me where I say that 40 cards is the kind of level of damage you want to be looking at to complete and win the game, 8 cards is 20%. And that's quite nasty. There's quite a nasty effect on this. For a card that is, okay, it's restrictive to Karita and Liao, arguably 2 cost tactics. So for 2 cost, I can deal 4 guaranteed damage, which can multiply. Let's compare that to a card, and this is a raw damage card. Let's compare it to Aerospace Fighter Mission, where you're paying 4-5p, scrap it and deal 5 damage anywhere you want. Okay, it's 5 damage. Yes, it's anywhere you want, but I'm paying 4 for that. Whereas with my Suicide Troops, I'm paying 2, and I'm getting a monstrous long-term effect, potentially, that could literally bleed my opponent. And the deck we're going to look at in a minute just absolutely plays on that. So that's very powerful. Some people would scream, it's broken! You can't, and I suspect that was a rule why in League you can only have 1 enhancement on a unit, which I think sucks. If I've got 3 damage, why can't I put 3 retrofitted missile racks on something? It's probably to prevent this card in particular stacking. Personally, I think it's quite powerful, and in the right deck, very, very annoying. You might, if you want to errata it, say scrap twice that many cards from his or her stockpile and scrap Suicide Troops. Because 4 damage out of a 2-cost card is very good value for money. If it goes on another turn, that becomes 6 damage, and so on and so on. And then we come to the final thing to note about this, is that the damage comes from the Suicide Troops card itself. So if I've got 2 vehicles with 2 different Suicide Troop cards on, it's important that you segregate out the totals. Because as soon as a unit with Suicide Troops dies, so does the effect of the card. So if there are 2 separate vehicles with Suicide Troops on both, and both have put counters onto the stockpile, and one of those is killed, say a Rocky Gorge, for example, then the damage from that Suicide Troops is negated because the card doesn't exist anymore. But that is a card that could have attacked twice or once. So this is important, and why, and I've asked for it a number of times, and I think we now got maybe the bare minimum, enough different coloured tokens in the game to start and deal with some of these things. So that you could use green tokens for this one, red tokens for another one, yellow tokens for another. Maybe there should be another token colour. I don't know. I appreciate the reticence in adding tokens left, right and centre, because you've then got, they all go on the menu and the menu gets big and horrible. I really wish there was a sub menu, and we looked at that. There isn't. It would have been nice to have a sub menu for a token and say, can I have a red one, a green one, a blue one, a purple one, a pink one? Because they've got pink tokens in the game if you look in the folder, and orange tokens and white tokens. It's just that when you add them, they go on the menu, and all of a sudden you've got a menu that goes up and down the screen to and basically fulfills it. Oh, excuse me, that is good. So Suicide Troops, very very nasty card if exploited. And the deck I'm going to show you exploits it to the max. And this is a deck by a guy called Maximus. I think if I even look at it, I've got it stashed away in the original HTML format from when he posted it on alphastrike.com, Dan Styles' website. And I liked it then. I like it now. I think it's a really, really good piece of deck design and a synergistic deck that deals with a number of issues. There are a few weaknesses to it. For those of you that have played Magic, and I hate to bring up Magic to be honest, I wonder if why there is a 4-card limit in the league is because of Magic. I still don't understand that. I think if there's 40 cards plus in a Magic deck and you've got a 10% 4 cards, why is 6 cards in Battletech of a deck of 60 cards so wrong that we have to change it? And I think there are too many meta implications of that, but we'll park that. So this is Maximus's deck, and it's the Liao variant of Suicide Troops. Note that there is a Kurita version as well. I'm going to have a look in a minute, but I'm not sure there's much for Kurita in this particular card. It's all Liao, and you're going to see this from the wonderful little subterfuge that's there. And here is the deck, and it is crazy in the respect that the entire deck contains 10 choppers. That's it. 10 choppers, 6 Cyrano, and 4 cavalry. And those are all your units. Everything else is control, subterfuge, or just pure nasty. And for those of you that are into Magic, this is probably akin to a blue deck with that control element and an element probably of black dealing damage over time. Okay. So here are our 10 choppers. The wonderful Cyrano, 0 cost, free deploy. Sorry, you don't get those in League, do you? Because the zeros. Again, why they were all removed. Well, they weren't removed. They were banned. Why they were banned, I don't know. Why I'm scared of a 0 cost urban mech all of a sudden. So 0 cost Cyrano, 1 cost cavalry. Okay, so those are our units. And in order to support that, we have the maximum amount, 6 copies of Suicide Troops. And the reason that we're using the choppers is the VTOL ability. If you recall, Suicide Troops says attacks the site and is not blocked. Okay, so you put it on a little chopper with a VTOL, and VTOL says VTOLs cannot be blocked by units without VTOL or patrolling units. So you've got to guard against them. And I suspect this is one of the reasons why in League you now have the Rifleman, which, although it was designed as an anti-aircraft mech, has no reason to be able to block VTOLs more than any other mech in the game. Yes, it might have a large laser or whatever it is, but so have every other unit around there. And then you might even say that units with LRMs and PPCs can do it. Why they can block VTOLs, I don't know. I suspect what's happened is someone's decided that they don't like this type of deck, whether it's VTOLs or whatever, and just decided that, do you know what, I'm going to ban it and get rid of it. Then we don't have to play it, which I think is a shame because I think it takes the deck out of the meta. And you know, the less decks in the meta, then the more predictable and boring the game becomes. So it's nice to have the variety. So anyway, so here are our little VTOLs. You put your Suicide Troops on them. These come out to start. Drop a Suicide Troops on. and you smack the opposing stockpile straight off for one from your vehicle, your chopper, and then two again in the repair reload, and then two if they try to get rid of the counter. If they don't get rid of the counter, they get two on the next go, and then you're probably going to hit them with the vehicle again, and another counter pops up. And where does this deck get crazy? Well, the deck gets crazy because the first thing you want to put onto your VTOL is superior navigation. First things for the draw the card, if you roll a 1 or 2, 4 attack. I mean, hell, I go Cyrano, reveal, tactics. Cyrano comes out and hits you for 1. Next turn, I go for logistics or politics, put suicide troops on it, and all of a sudden I hit you with a VTOL again on turn 2 for 1 from the first turn, 1 from the second turn, 2 more damage from suicide troops. Superior nav gives me another 4, so that's 6 damage, and I can put a second suicide troops counter on it. So I can have 6 damage and 4 damage on the start of your next go, and you've only had 1 deployment turn, your first turn of 2 cards. So that's 10 damage in the 40 cards. Oh, and if I roll a 5 or 6, I untap the mech, and I can attack again and put another counter on. So that could be 6 damage and 3 counters. So that's 12 damage by the end of your repair reload phase. And that's vicious. It's pure nasty. No ways around it. What's really clever with this deck is how they deal with the rest of stuff, because that's your basic attack. Suicide troops and put counters on, hit them with a VTOL so they can't block, add some damage with superior nav, untap it and add more counters. Okay, so what is your opponent going to do to try and stop you doing this? Well, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to tap a mech and remove a counter, and then they're going to guard. So, what do you do? I'm going to misroute command it. Scrap it when it's revealed, choose a unit, tap it. There you go. It's a guarding mech. It's tapped. It's now got 3 counters on it. You can't even tap it to remove my suicide troops counter anymore because it's tapped with these misrouted commands on it. So that's why misroute is in the deck, in order to just keep everything tied up. If I run out of misroutes, what else can I do? Well, this is one of the other reasons for running the Liao variation of the deck, is that you have the lovely subterfuge of manipulation of Romano, which basically says tap all guarding mechs. It's simple. They're all out the way. Over I head with my little choppers and drop my suicide troops off again. Tick, 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 tick. Damage, damage, damage. Okay. Now, the other aspects we have, good old Sun Tzu and Maximilian. Yeah, we know what they do. They recycle the subterfuge cards of misrouted command and manipulation of Romano, and allow me to bring them back for free. You've got to be careful with Max's Legacy, because Sun Tzu is one of the few cards that is Liao based. The other ones being Suicide Troops. So there are only 7 Liao cards in the deck. This is scrap when revealed, so it's not going to be a constant thing. So you've only got 7 cards in the deck that have Liao affiliation. So if you can get rid of Sun Tzu playing against it and the Suicide Troops, Max's Legacy will disappear. You'll notice Task Force Serpent isn't in here. This is an Arsenal deck. This was created before Task Force Serpent and other things, etc., etc. And then finally, and this I thought, what the hell is that in there? And then I read it, because I read the card wrong or couldn't remember it way back when, 20 odd years ago. The kicker, the absolute meatballs in the batter, the bit that tips you over the edge, is trapped. And this just, if you're playing against this deck and you get hit by a chopper with Suicide Troops, and then you get a unit tapped and misrouted, whatever else, and then you think, oh, you know what, I've just about managed to stabilise. I've got a couple of damage incoming. I can now start and try and deal with these pesky little choppers. And you attack and you get hit by this. It makes you want to scream. Okay. Trapped. Play when attacked, roll a die. 1 to 2, put it back in your hand. Okay. 3 to 6, put a pin counter on the unit during the player's mission phase, but not during a mission. That player may tap 2 units to remove the pin counter. So literally, it ties everything up. That unit that's pinned or trapped, doesn't untap during the untap phase. So this, along with Mystery Command, has the ability to completely tie up your opponent's mechs, and then you can make sure with the manipulation of Romano that you can push things through, and the damage is all over the place. So I will just load it to we'll go stockpile, and then I can show you what it looks like. And I'm just going to, again, as ever, reveal these all to everybody, and I'll show you how a normal turn goes. Oh, there's one more thing to notice. This deck is politics and tactics. There is no logistics in it at all. And again, this struck me as being slightly odd, but it is very, very true. Maximus is happy to pay the 1L buyout on the Cyrano and the 1L buyout on the cavalry. So he's happy to pay 2 for a cavalry and 1 for a Cyrano. Yes, there's a think tank in there, but it's peripheral. He is happy to pay those buyouts because that's what the value of that unit is to him. And it does slow the deck up slightly, and that's one of the good things with buyouts in a way. So anyway, what would a normal turn look like? A normal turn would be Cyrano revealed, tactics. Okay, if you go for cavalry, you can't do it revealed. But anyway, Cyrano revealed, straight off, because it dashes, smack you for 1. Okay, 1 damage. Untap, next turn, politics, tap, tap, suicide troops on the Cyrano. Okay, attack with the Cyrano for 1. Play a superior nav. So that's 2 damage, superior nav roll, 2. Let's just say it's a 6. Let's just say it's a 6, okay? So that's 2 damage from the Cyrano twice, 4 attack from the superior nav gets us to 6, and you put suicide troops on it, okay? And then I untap and attack again, so the 6 damage goes to 7, and now there are, and let's just let's just spawn a card. There it is. That's the stockpile. So there's a generic counter for suicide troops. 1 off the first one, and generic counter +1. And if I do the damage, it's taken 1 from the first attack, 1 from the second attack, 4 more from our superior nav, and another 1 from that untap and attack again. Okay, that's ideal, but this shows you the extreme. Okay. And the other guy has basically got an assembly out. Okay. So I can go on the scrap heap. He comes out with something. Maybe he reduces one of the counters. I don't know. Maybe he taps and removes it, what have you. But all of a sudden, that has now gone up to 9 damage from the repair reload phase. Okay, he does what he does. Maybe one of the counters disappears. Maybe he guards. We untap everything again, and at this point, you could, if he's got a patrolling mech out, play a misroute and block it and tap it up. Okay, that's one option. You could pay 2 for a cavalry and do a couple more damage. What's most likely is he will get a unit out and you will play another resource and a misroute. And then once that's tied up his unit, you tap that and hit it again. So all of a sudden we're now up to another damage, and we've got another generic counter on it. And then we get to, and I think I might have miscounted because there were 2 counters on that. There's probably 2 more on there. and then we get to the repair reload phase, and the damage goes up another 2 or 3 or 4. And you can see how this multiplies, this snowballs this effect so easily. If you don't get such a great draw, then some of these, and this is the thing people forget, if I don't get a great draw, then if I don't get my Cyrano and my Suicide Troops in my hand, what do I get in my hand instead? Maybe I've got a Misroute to keep him busy. Maybe I've got a War Funds to get what I want. Yeah. Maybe I've got a cavalry. Maybe I've got a manipulation of Romano, and I can wait for a turn or two to build that up, and then when he's guarding, I can hit that and get that out of the way and get that through. And the other thing is with the VTOLs is you can't stop them effectively. The only way to block them is to either guard, and we've got methods around that, or, and this is where a lot of people say, oh, it's broken, you've got to guard. You don't have to guard. Okay. Okay. You play Rocky Gorge, which literally slaughters the Cyrano. If you look at terrain cards, I think that's so. Let's have a look. Desert Wasteland. Desert Wasteland kills it. It makes the cavalry roll. It kills the Cyrano. Fog Shrouded Moors. It does nothing. Heavy Woods prevents the damage. Some of it. Rocky Gorge kills it. Heavy Woods is 2 damage to target. Rolling Hills is 2 to blocking mechs. So there are ways there to terrains are the ways to kill it, basically. I was just looking at the attacks a site and is not blocked. Put a guerrilla counter on the site during your opponent's reload phase. For each guerrilla counter on the site, Suicide Troops deals 2 damage. So the thing that's a bit nasty about this is it gets the guerrilla counter if it attacks on its own and isn't blocked. It might be worth, again, if you were thinking of changing this card, suggesting that if the site is damaged, that way more of the terrains would have an effect. Heavy Woods, Fog Shrouded Moors, for example, would have an effect. Okay, it won't have an effect if you play Superior Nav because it's +4 attack, but it does force the playing of Superior Nav. So there are ways that this can be balanced. And the other thing I'd say is there are people knee-jerk and say, I hate it and it's broken. And yeah. Why hasn't it won Worlds if it's that broken? Why haven't enough people played this often enough? And I would say there are 2 factors there. The first factor is when you look at it, and we don't, oh, we do. Let's look at the rarity of the cards. Max is, Sun Tzu is, Manipulation is, Trapped is, Superior Nav is, Cyrano is. So that's 6, 16, 20, 21, 22 rare cards in this deck. And one of the reasons it wasn't so widely played physically, people just didn't have the cards. That's an awful lot of investment. Having 6 superior navs is a lot. Having 5 trapped, 4 misplaced Romano, 2 uniques, and the Cyrano is a lot of investment. Okay. And secondly, the other reason is the advent of uses of cards such as Rocky Gorge to deal damage to it. There are other cards that will do that. There are various limited or unlimited cards that give plus attacks to sites. And the other one that is very popular and widely used is good old Comguard Response Team, which you'll note in Commander's Edition isn't Comguard only. Target gets +4 attack, and basically it allows you to kill the Cyranos or the cavalries. And once you've got over that hump and you can guard a little, then it's a lot harder for this deck to win. It is basically an all or nothing early surprise deck, and then it holds on whilst your life disappears from that draining effect of the suicide troops over time. And that's how it wins. 10 little choppers, 6 little suicide troops, a little bit of untapping and a tying up of your resources. It is a very classy deck. It's very well thought out. It's very well delivered. It's very synergistic. The question I would say to you is, if you know that your opponent is going to put 4 Rocky Gorges in his sideboard because he's expecting this, what would you take out to put in your 4 creative terraformings to remove it? Which is likely what you're going to sideboard, something like that. Because all of your damage is front loaded. You're not going to want to take your soup navs out. You might decide I'm going to drop a trapped or a miss. You might have to drop a trapped, a misroute, a Romano, and something else. Maybe even take your uniques out in order to get your creative terraformings in, because without creative terraforming, you're dead. Someone Rocky Gorges, this deck is going nowhere fast. It's just going to roll over and die because it's completely offensive. It has no defense in itself. In that respect, you can't block with the Cyranos. The only defense you have is things like trapped and misroute and tying the other guy up, which can make a good game of it. But I think when it comes to a war of attrition, the chances are that in the long term, you're going to lose. So it's a very, very interesting deck. Very fun to play. Very annoying to play against. There are loads of counters to it. And as I said, I don't think it's broken because I haven't seen anyone exploit it to that extent. Has it got an 80% win rate? I don't think so. And I think the counters to it are very common. It's worth a look. It's a good bit of fun if you want to annoy somebody. If you're playing in League, don't even go there. You've got a 4-card limit, which basically means a lot of this control goes out the window. Your suicide troops goes out the window. Your Cyranos are gone because you're not allowed 0 cost units. Is there anything left? But we've removed 400 cards from the game. There are only 830 to start with. You've got rid of half of them. Cavalry's playable, but it ain't going anywhere otherwise. So play the proper version of the game. Play the 6-card version of the game. Play this and have a bit of fun. I'm sure someone will be annoyed by you. Tell them that it is an annoying deck and it's not them personally, and they may well forgive you. But it's a class piece of thought. So I've got to give it a load of credit. Maximus, when you designed this and put this on Alpha Strike, I saved the page because I thought, wow, that is so good. How you can win the game with 10 choppers. And I know some Battletech purists will say, yes, I've got to have mechs and other things. Okay, yeah, you can have your Thor here or whatever else, but it promotes diversity in the game, and I think that's important. If it's just, you've got 2 structure, or 2 armor, 7 structure, 3 overheat, 2 elf, or whatever else, it just becomes a numbers game. It becomes a bit too Sudoku-y. I can do Sudokus all day long. So it is fun. It's different. So anyway, so that's my review of Suicide Troops. In the respect of, yes, it's a powerful card. Get it on a VTOL. It will kick some serious bottom. I think it's open to a little bit of tweaking if people really start complaining that it's abusive. I'm not sure of what you would put in the game Kurita-wise, actually. In fact, I have not looked at the Kurita options. What options might we have Kurita-wise? Let's turn this into a... is there a command that we could use? Operation commands, restocking, Theo, death sabotage. I don't know what I would put in here. Lethal Commanders Edition box. Oh, forget those, they're awful. I don't know what cards I would put in with Suicide Troops. There's nothing that's overly synergistic. Not like the way that you've got your manipulations and your subterfuge with Liao. So Liao version, definitely the best. Liao version, annoying as hell. Yes. Liao version wins games. Yes. Liao version, Maximus's deck well put together. Yes. Here it is: one think tank, four war funds, six misroute, four cavalry, one max legacy, one Sun Tzu, four manipulation of Romanos, five trapped, five superior navs, six Cyranos, six suicide troops, two black markets, seven politics, eight tactics, and that's the deck. And you probably want to put four creative terraformings in your sideboard. But play it, have some fun, enjoy it for what it is. A very well thought out, a very good deck that doesn't abuse, but uses the cards that it uses to maximum effect. Is probably the best way to phrase it. So, anyway, that's me. I'm done. Stick a fork in me. And I will be back soon. I've got to do a little more on the draft stuff for the January tournament. That will probably be next. But if there's anything you want, let me know. Happy to keep my listeners, my one or two listeners, very happy with doing whichever cards they want. So make a request, I'll have a look at it and go for it and go from there. But in the meantime, look after yourselves, stay safe. It's a big bad world out there. I'll see you soon.